Okay. Very good morning to everyone. Sorry for the short delay, but we observed that there were a lot of people coming in the meeting late. So we are just waiting for them. I'm going to start in just a few seconds. Okay. I just want to confirm that my audio is crystal clear. Okay. So just don't want any technical issues in the coming lecture. So if you all can hear me clearly, please let me know in the chat right now. For those who are new to Microsoft Teams, the chat box can be accessed by pressing on the chat icon on the top. Okay. So you can actually chat with me. I have disabled mics for now. Okay. I will enable it later. I usually disable mics so that there is less disturbance. There's a lot of mistakes which happen. So, okay. Thanks for letting me know, guys, that it's clear. Okay. And we will start with the lecture. Okay. Yeah, so before I begin, I would first want to thank a few people. So, first of all, thank you very much, Delta Electronics, for organizing this competition, right? So, for people who don't know, Delta Electronics, the reason for this training is for the Delta Electronics Delta Cup, which is being organized. And there are some students and teams which are taking part from your college. And because of that, we will be actually taking training based on Delta Electronics products, right? So we are going to be starting with day one of training today, right? So thank you very much, Delta Electronics, first of all, for providing us this platform and this competition and everything. Second, thank you very much to VJTI College, right? So I am overwhelmed by the response. I see over 150 people have registered for this seminar, which is a lot. Thank you very much for the amazing response, and I hope we, deliver on our promises and give you the training that you would like. Special thanks to Dr. Farooq Kazi, who has always been involved during the competition stage when we first went to talk to him about training, and also Shraddha ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, for organizing this. She has been tirelessly working behind the scenes to ensure that this competition and training goes very smoothly. So thanks all of you, and so today we are going to be starting with the fundamentals of PLC, right? And I'm going to try to complete the theoretical part as soon as possible, right? So definitely to program PLCs, you do need to have some theoretical background before you go ahead with it, right? So in the first half, I would say maybe the first 30 minutes, we are probably going to be taking the fundamentals of PLC from a theoretical perspective, right? So we'll be talking about what is a PLC, the electrical connections, power supply, things like NPN, PNP, scan time, inputs, outputs, things like that, right? And definitely, I want to also show you a real industrial device while I do this. So I am very fortunate to have a Delta kit with me, right? So I hope everyone can see this on my screen. I have a Delta PLC over here, and I'm going to be explaining everything with basis to this kit, right? So I actually have a PLC in front of me. I'm going to be programming this PLC and also be explaining the different, components, inputs, outputs, how it works and stuff like that, right? So, right. So if at any point there are any questions, please go ahead and put it in the chat. At suitable intervals, I will be, giving you all time to ask, an interactive Q&A. So we'll be doing that as well, right? So without further ado, I think we can start with the training. Okay. So like I said, we are going to be talking about the fundamentals of PLC, and I'm pretty sure that most of you know what a PLC is, but I'm still going to be explaining it, right? So PLC stands for a programmable logic controller, right? And let's break this word into three parts, right? We have programmable logic and controller, right? So by programmable, I mean that this can be programmed as well as reprogrammed. Now over here, the reprogram word is very important, right? So there are many chips which are one flash chips, and you can only download the program once, and after that you can't download or something like that. So the PLC is not like that. It is a robust controller that can be programmed and then also can be modified and reprogrammed, right? Now, when we talk about logic, right, we talk about programmable logic. So definitely we're going to be writing some logic into this, right? So in PLCs, there is a standard called as IEC 61131-3. Okay, now this might sound a little confusing, right? But it's a standard that has been developed by an organization called as PLC Open, right? And the organization basically just established some guidelines for languages, right? And these guidelines are actually followed by almost every manufacturer in the world, right, including Delta Electronics, right? So this languages consist of basically 5 types of languages, right? So we have structured text, which is very much like your C basic, these kind of languages, right? We have ladder diagram, which is the most widely used language as of now. We have things like function block diagram, instruction list, and sequential function chart, right? So there are these 5 languages, right? Now, all PLCs might not support all these languages, right? So we'll look into which PLCs support which languages. But most of the higher end controllers do support all the 5 languages and also some additional languages, right? So Delta Electronics has their own additional languages which they do support. Now, when you ask what is like the best language to write in, right? The answer is that there is no such thing, right? There is no such thing as a best language, right? So when we write now, I am an application developer, right? I'm from a company called as Absolute Motion, and we basically provide solutions for the industry. And when we write solutions in PLC for the industry, we generally write in 2 to 3 languages, right? So we don't stick to just one language, right? So different types of logic can be better written in different languages, right? And that can only come by experience and practice. Now, when we talk about controllers, right, the actual hardware, right, so it's going to consist of some hardware, right, which we are going to be using, right? So overall, what is a PLC in a nutshell, right? It is you could call it as an industrial digital computer, right? And it is a very rugged controller, right? Which means that it is built to last, right? And I have seen PLCs that have been running in factories for maybe 15 to 20 years. Okay, so PLCs are meant built to last for a very long time, and they are basically adapted for the industry, right? So things like controlling of your manufacturing, FMCG machines, pharmaceutical assembly lines, robotic devices, any machine basically, right, can be programmed with these PLCs, right? So, where did actually PLCs come from, right? Where did they actually come from? And the answer is that it is very hard to pinpoint, right? But they say that the discovery of automation actually started with the Ford Motor Company, right? So Henry Ford was the pioneer of automation, he is called, right? So it was first, I would say PLCs are first used in the automobile industry, right? So what exactly is the need then, right? So now one more thing I would like to address, right, because I know this question comes a lot, right, is what is the difference between PLCs and things like Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and other such developmental boards, or maybe a difference between PLC and embedded controllers, right? And a lot of people actually say that, why don't we just use Raspberry Pis in the industry, or why don't we use Arduinos in the industry, right? And the simple answer to this is that PLCs are built to be rugged, and they also have a lot of certifications, right? So you have certifications like your CE and UL certification, which are essential for certain industries, right? So when you talk about Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and other such devices, they are amazing to learn development, but actually deploying them in an industrial environment could not really end well, right? So this is the reason why PLCs are preferred over such devices, right? Now, let's talk about the need of PLCs in the industry, right? So why did actually PLCs come into being, right? So I think everyone can see this first picture. It is a picture of a very beautiful panel, right? Amazing wiring. And I'm obviously being very sarcastic. This wiring is very, very messy, right? It gives me a headache to look at it, right? And this was the kind of panels that were actually designed before the PLC era, right? So before the PLC era, we had something control panels that were wired in something which we call as hardwired logic, right? Now, what is hardwired logic, right? Hardwired logic is simply electrical connections, right? There is no controller, right? There's nothing. It's just going to be electrical connections and relays, and they are going to be working in binary logic, right? Now, I'm sure most of the students out there might have studied about gates, right? Your AND, OR, NOR, NAND, XOR. I think most of you must have forgotten the truth tables also of all these gates, right? But in the initial stage of building panels and building logic, these gates were actually the only way we could actually, design logic, right? So if you actually break down any code, whether it is C, ladder, Python, anything, ultimately it can be broken down into machine code and ones and zeros, right? So your older control panels had that extremely, that initial stage of binary logic, right? Binary logic basically means ones and zeros, right? Now, there were three main problems with these panels, right? Three main problems. The first was that the time required to build this panel was very lengthy. Okay. And if you want proof of this, imagine I give this to you as your final year project and I say that you have to build this whole panel. I think most people will quit engineering, right? They don't want to touch this, right? So imagine that this panel had to be wired by hand, right? It had to be wired by hand, and definitely it's going to take a lot of time to build, right? The second thing is troubleshooting. Okay, so again, imagine that I give you this panel as your final year project, right? But instead of giving you the panel, telling you to build the panel, I just give you this ready-made panel, and then I randomly cut 5 wires anywhere, right? I randomly cut 5 wires anywhere and I tell you, listen, your project is to now find out why this panel is not working, right? So now you can imagine looking at this panel, right? Looking at this panel and going through each connection, checking continuity and things like that. Definitely, it's going to be very, very difficult, right? It's going to be almost impossible in some cases, right? And the third most important thing in today's world, right, is that production in today's world is very, very, very important, right? And if there is a breakdown of a machine due to any electrical fault or programming fault or anything like that, in these older panels, the time required to bring it back to production was very lengthy, right? And in the modern world, production is money, right? So I have been to plants where the production happens in 3 shifts of 8 hours each. That means 24/7, 365 production, right? And the amount of time required to where the machine is not running causes a huge loss. Just a very anecdotal experience of mine, my personal experience is that I was called to a site somewhere around 5 hours from Delhi in a place called as Kashipur, right? And there was a paper manufacturing industry there, and the machine was down, and I was called to basically diagnose, right? And it was very urgent from what the client was saying, right? They called us very urgently, and we took the next flight immediately to the place. And we realized that every day in this particular paper mill, every day that the machine was off, right, was out of production, they were losing approximately 18 to 20 lakh rupees per day, right? And this is the reality of production nowadays, right? That it has to be, continuously running, right? So this is the reason why a PLC basically was introduced to mitigate all these problems, right? So what a PLC will do, a PLC basically will act as a middleman, right? It will act as a middleman. And what will it act as a middleman between? It will act as a middleman between your inputs and your outputs, right? So in your old systems, you had inputs directly connected to outputs, right? As I said, inputs directly connected to outputs. In the case of the PLC is going to be in between your inputs and outputs, right? So your inputs and outputs are not directly connected to each other, right? So what actually happens is that you now have control, right? You now have control, right? So all your inputs are connected to the PLC, all your outputs will be connected to the PLC, right? And you are going to be able to decide which inputs will turn on which outputs, right? This is a very simplistic explanation of what is happening, but this is at the core, this is what is happening, right? So when you look at the working principle of any PLC, right, you will have three stages, right? You will have an input stage where you're going to be receiving inputs. You're going to have some process stage where you're going to be processing whatever logic you have written. And then there you are going to fire some outputs or take some action, right? So this is your three stages of your PLC. And if you notice in these three stages, you will see that after the output, it goes back to the input, right? So this actually means that the PLC is going to execute in a loop, right? It is a cyclic process. That means it is going to start running from the top and then go to the bottom and then again cycle back to the top, right? So we'll see how PLC logic runs and all that other things during the programming part, right? Okay, so I'm going to just ask a very simple question to everyone, right? Just a second, guys. Yeah. So I hope everyone can see this very simple application, right? Now we have been talking about PLC being a middleman between inputs and outputs and all that, right? But what exactly is inputs and outputs, right? What exactly do we call? So I have shown you a very simple application, and you can see it's a picture of a tank, right? And this tank is going to have some inlet flow coming from the top, right? And this inlet flow is basically just like water filling into the tank, right? And as you can see, there are two sensors present here, and one is a low level sensor and one is a high level sensor, right? And we also have a pump over here, right? So the question is that how many inputs and how many outputs are there in this system? Okay, the question is how many inputs and how many outputs are there in this system? Okay, so I'll give everyone like maybe a minute to answer this, right? How many inputs, how many outputs? Yeah, so you can answer in the chat, guys. Okay, you can answer by typing in the chat. Okay, and I'll give everyone a minute or two. Yeah, so I want the number of inputs, right? I want the number of inputs, right? How many inputs are there total in this system, right? How many total inputs are there? Anyone answers? How many inputs? How many outputs? There's no wrong answers, right? Or there are wrong answers, but there is no harm in getting answers wrong, right? Okay, so I'm getting answers three, two input, one output, three input, one output. Okay, three inputs from the inlet. If inlet is control, okay. Okay, the most complete answer I would say is from Miss Daria Shah. Okay, if inlet is controllable, then three inputs, else two inputs and one output. Fantastic answer, right? So yes, this is the answer, right? The answer is that there are two inputs in this system and there is one output, right? Now, when I talk about how many inputs are there in the system and how many outputs are there, you have to understand I am asking how many inputs are going to be connected to the PLC and how many outputs are going to be fired from the PLC, right? So in this case, two inputs are present, one output. And as Ms. Shah rightly said, if there is a controllable inlet flow, then you will be able to count this also as a not an input but an output probably, right? Because this inlet flow will also be a pump, right? So this will be an output then, right? If this was controllable, right? Because you are not getting any signal from this inlet flow, right? You are going to be controlling an output to turn on that inlet flow, right? So I hope you all understand when I'm talking about inputs, outputs, I'm talking about with respect to my PLC. Okay. So just for just for fun, Okay, let us see. Now, just for everyone's reference, I am going to be showing you this example in a 3D simulation, right? So we are going to be actually programming a tank with timers and stuff. Okay, so that will be probably by the end of the lecture. But this is your whole tank, right? Okay, so let's talk about inputs and outputs and everything else, right? So as everyone can see, now this is a picture of a DVP12SE PLC, but rather than that, let us actually see the live PLC, right? So I have a PLC right now with me, right? And PLC model is, as you can see on the left side, it is Delta's DVP12SE series, right? Now, what does this what does this DVP actually mean? The DVP is the type, the series of PLC, right? So Delta has various series like DVP, AS, PM series. There are many series. We'll see all the series later, right? So there are various series of PLC. This is the one of the base series called as DVP12SE. And what does this model number tell us, right? The first thing it tells us is this is the model of the PLC. The second, there is a number 12, right? That number 12 actually means how many inputs plus outputs are present in the system, right? So in this PLC, I actually have 8 inputs and 4 outputs, which makes it 8 plus 4, 12, right? So you can tell that there is 12 IOs in this PLC. IO means inputs and outputs, right? And the SE actually means that it is an Ethernet based PLC. So you can see that I have an Ethernet port here, right? I have an Ethernet port. So this means that this supports, communication via Ethernet, and also I can program this via Ethernet, right? So let's talk about first inputs, right? So we have some inputs over here, okay? And as you can see, these inputs are actually starting from X, right? We have it annotated as X. And in Delta, we symbolize inputs with the symbol X, okay? So we start with X0, we go X1, X2, X3, so on and so forth. And all these inputs basically are generally grouped together in an octal format, right? So if you start with X0, X1, X2, X3, and we go up to X7, that makes 8 inputs. If in case this PLC had more inputs, right, it would probably then start with X10, X11, X12, right? There is no X8, X9, right? So they are always grouped in an octal format, right? Octal means 8. So we have inputs which are symbolized by the symbol X, right? And as you can see, I have some wires coming into these inputs. Okay, I hope everyone can see this. And what are these wires? Where are these wires actually coming from, right? These wires are actually coming from the actual inputs which are present in my kit. So you can see things like switches. I have things like push buttons as well, right? I have an emergency stop push button on the right side. So I have all these different inputs, right? Now, when I talk about inputs, X series of inputs, right, I am talking very specifically about binary inputs, right? I am talking about binary inputs. And these binary inputs basically mean that they either can be 0 or 1, okay? They can be either 0 or 1, either on or off, or true or false, right? So, we are not talking about analog inputs here, right? We are not talking about analog inputs. We are talking about digital discrete signals, right? Which can either be 0 or 1, right? Now, most PLCs and Delta PLCs, okay, are powered by either 240 volts AC or 24-volt DC, with 24-volt DC being the more common option, right? And that also means that this input will receive 24 volts DC from the input, right? So what are the examples of inputs, right? What are the kind of binary inputs and binary switches? So we have things like switches, right? We have things like switches. You can see some switches at the bottom here. We have things like push buttons. You can see some push buttons there. Now, what is exactly a push button? A push button is something that actually, has a spring type movement, right? So when you press the button, it will release when you release your finger, right? That's what a push button is, right? So this is all about your inputs, right? We also have outputs as well, right? So if you look below here, you will see that there are certain outputs over here, below here. So we start from Y0, Y1, Y2, Y3. There are 4 outputs in this PLC, right? So we start with Y0, Y1, Y2, Y3. Again, these are not analog outputs, right? So we are not talking about 4 to 20 milliampere, 0 to 10 volts, nothing like that. We are talking about simple discrete outputs, right? Which are either going to be on or they're going to be off, right? So what are the examples of that? LED lamps, indicator lights, relays, contactors, things like that, right? These are the kind of things that can be turned on with these outputs. Okay, so if we actually look at just some of the devices, pictorial representation, push button selector switches, limit switches, proximity sensors are the kind of things which will be connected on the input side, right? And on the output side, we have things like indicator lights, signaling columns, relays, motor starters, things like that, right? Great. Let's just talk about a little bit about electrical characteristics, and then we can directly go to the programming part. Okay. So first of all, PLCs are going to be generally powered on by something which we call as an SMPS, right? So I have an SMPS over here, and you can see it is a Delta SMPS, right? It is a Chrome series SMPS. And let's just look at this SMPS, right? So we have, you can see there are some specifications written here. Now, what is an SMPS? SMPS is switch mode power supply. Okay, it is simply, in layman's terms, it is going to convert your line voltage, which is your 240 volts AC, which we get in our house, to 24 volt DC, which my PLC and other devices are going to use, right? And this 24 volt DC, by the way, guys, is an industrial standard, right? So every PLC, most sensors, most buttons are all going to use 24 volt DC, right? So we can see here it's written output DC is going to be 24 volts at 2.5 ampere, which means that this has a capacity of 2.5 amps, right? So 24 volts at 2.5 amps, right? And we can see that the input voltage can be between 100 to 240 volts and also 50 to 60 hertz, which means that this SMPS can work anywhere, right? Even if I plug this in the US, it is probably going to work, right? And we see down here, there are two L and N, right? This stands for your line and neutral, which is your two wires which you are going to connect from your actual plug to your SMPS, right? And you have plus plus and minus minus, right? You have these pins here, right? This plus basically means the 24 volts and the minus is going to be your 0 volts, right? Now, I'm not going to go deep into electrical concepts, right? But I hope everyone knows that when we are going to be giving DC input, we need two wires, right? We can't just give one wire, right? This 24 volts is not 24 volts, right? Unless we are comparing it to this 0 volts, which is my reference, right? So this is the concept of potential difference, right? When we say this is a 24 volt DC power supply, we mean that this 24, which is being outputted at this pin, is 24 volts with respect to this 0 volts, right? So you need to connect both, right? So I hope you all understand the power supply part. Now, most other devices like many HMIs, many IPCs also, most sensors, buttons, all these are going to be powered on using your SMPS, right? So it is important to have a SMPS with the correct current capacity as well. Okay, I'm going to be taking something which is a little tricky concept, but I think that it's very important for people to understand this. Okay, and that is the NPN and PNP wiring. Okay, when you select PLCs, generally you will find that when you're using sensors or buttons or input devices, right, you will generally have two types of devices, right? You have your PNP type devices, which are also called as syncing type, and you have NPN devices, which are also called as sourcing type, right? Now, what is exactly the difference between these two, right? So these are two standards which are in the industry, right? And it is very important to understand this while selecting components for your PLC, right? So over here, if you notice, now every sensor generally will have three wires, most sensors, right? They will have two wires for powering on that particular sensor and one wire as a signal wire, right? Sometimes it has 4 wires, but let's not talk about that, right? We'll only talk about the simple 3-wire sensors, right? So this sensor is going to be powered on using 24 volts and 0 volts. So you can see a 0 volt DC here, and you have 24 volts, which is connected here. Now, this is just powering on the sensor, right? It is powered on now. Now, when the sensor actually senses some object, it has to give me a signal, right? It has to give me a signal. So that signal, right, is what actually differentiates that NPN and PNP. Now, just to be very clear, this is not your NO and NC concept, right? You're normally open, normally closed. This is not the same thing, right? This is different, right? So what is a PNP type sensor? A PNP type sensor, okay, is where you are going to be receiving a 24 volt signal from the sensor, right? And you're going to have a 0 volt as the common for these inputs, right? I hope everyone understands what this means, right? So whenever we are getting a signal from a sensor coming from the field, right? Now, most of you might be thinking, obviously it is 24 volts. It's a 24 volt sensor, so we'll get 24 volt signal, right? But it's not like that, right? This signal can also be 0 volts, right? So it all depends on what is the common of these particular inputs connected internally in the PLC, right? So we have over here in this PNP case, we have 0 volts common, but with your inputs, right? And your 24 volts is then going to come and complete the circuit, okay? So this is also called as syncing, right? Because you can think of it as this, the voltage is coming into the PLC, so it's syncing, right? Now, in the case of NPN wiring, right? In the case of NPN wiring, what happens is that this 24 volt DC, right, is your common now, right? Can you see it is your common here, right? So what signal is going to come from the sensor to complete the circuit? It's going to be 0 volts, right? So this is what an NPN type sensor is. Now, this also extends to outputs as well, right? So when you are firing an output from the PLC, you can either fire 24 volts DC or you can fire 0 volts, right? It is also, outputs also come in PNP and NPN type, right? Now, why is this important and why am I telling you this, right? Is because this is something where when people do PLC projects, this is the one thing where they make a lot of mistakes in, right? Where they look at this and they say, you know, I'm going to buy one PNP sensor, two NPN type sensors, and I'm going to use it in the same PLC. And it doesn't work that way, right? So thankfully, Delta is one of the few brands that actually offers a port over here, a pin over here, which is called as SS, right? Which is your sync source basically, right? Where you can actually select basically effectively how your inputs are going to run, whether it's going to run in NPN and PNP, right? But you have to make sure that this support is there. But what does this actually mean? It means that once you have committed to a type of input, you have to use those type of inputs only. So if you're committing to PNP type, you have to use PNP sensors everywhere. If you're using NPN type, you have to use NPN everywhere, right? I hope everyone has understood this, right? So this is all about PNP, NPN. I'm sure I'm going to get lots of questions about this. I'm ready for that. So no problem. Maybe we can explain it a little more later. So finally, we come to our programming software, right? So this is what everyone is probably interested in, is how to program a PLC, right? How to program a PLC. And like I said, your PLC is going to be a middleman between your inputs and outputs, right? So what is actually the middleman here, what we are talking about is your programming software. Okay, so your programming software is your middleman, right? And that's what we are going to be learning today, right? Where I'm going to be taking you all through a live programming session so you all understand each element. Now, there's one thing which I also need to talk about, which is called as a scan time of a PLC, right? And basically, PLCs scan your logic from top to bottom, right? And this is very standard, right? So when you're writing a program in English, right, it's going to scan your logic from top left to bottom right. So left to right, top to bottom, right? When you're writing in English. And when you're writing in Arabic, it is going to be the same. Okay, it's not going to scan from right to left, right? So no matter what language you're writing in, and believe me, people do write in different languages in PLC, right? no matter what language you're writing in, right, it is going to be top to bottom, left to right. This is an industrial standard, right? So your logic is going to scan from the top left and go to the top bottom right, and then it is going to loop back to the top. Okay, so this is how your program is going to scan, right? Now the time taken for this whole program to scan from top left to bottom right and then come back to the top is called as your scan time, right? And this is generally in milliseconds, right? So the better the processor of your PLC, the faster the scan time is going to be. And what is going to increase scan time? Mainly three things: increasing the number of inputs in the system, increasing your program size, or increasing probably the number of outputs in the system. These are three things, right? Other things also increase scan time like delay and stuff like that, but we'll not get into that, right? So this is all about your basics, absolute basics of your Delta PLC, right? Absolute basics. So I'm going to take a short Q&A session now. Okay, so if anyone wants to ask any questions, you all can go ahead and ask in the chat. Okay. So I'll wait for a minute, guys. Let's take a short Q&A for those who have questions. Okay, and then I'll move on to the programming part. Okay. If anyone would like to be unmuted, please let me know in the chat. I'll unmute you. Is there any mode setting in PLC for SS connection, or is it self-understanding depending on the 24 or 0 volt connected to SS? It is self-understanding. There is no mode or setting you have to do from the PLC, right? There's no mode or setting. Could you show the PLC which you have right now? Yes, this is the PLC basically which I have right now. This is the PLC, right? So this white color box here, right? This is the PLC. This is an extension module, actually, an analog. So the actual PLC is only this much, right? This is the actual size of the PLC. This is an extended module which I have put for analog, right? Is there any common language for PLC? Very good question. And yeah, can I take PNP, NPN once again? Yes, I will explain that again. Is there any common language for PLC? Chetan, when I explain the different languages of PLC, which is your structure text ladder, FPD, sequential function chart, instruction list, these are all common languages. Every manufacturer in the world follows this standard. Okay, every manufacturer in the world follows this standard, right? So that is why it is a standard language basically, right? So Delta Electronics is also following these languages. Basic question: in SMPS there were two plus and minus, so we can power two devices simultaneously from one SMPS. No, so basically the reason why they have given two plus and minus, right, is simply for convenience sake, right? So this is simply for convenience. You can actually just tap multiple devices. So on this one plus, I probably have like 10 different things powered on, right? As you can see, I have, this is all considered as one device: one LED, two LED, three LED, four LED. Then this is one switch, two switch, three switch, one push button, second push button. So there are various devices which I have connected, right, including my PLC, right? So I can tap all from one plus. It will not plus and minus. It will not make a difference, right? They have just given it for ease of wiring, right? Supposing you want to tap some amount of inputs from one side, and then on other side of the panel also you want to tap some inputs, it is for that basically, right? So the bigger the SMPS, generally the more ports they give you to tap. Can we do hybrid programming like FBD ladder in one single project? Absolutely. That is the fun of it, right? You can do, I write in 3 languages in generally one project. Okay. So you can use various, languages. Can we debug the PLC program? Yes, I will be talking about PLC programming now. Okay, so stay tuned for that. I will be talking about programming. What is ZP and UP below the output port? Yes, I'll answer that soon. Just I'll come to that. Okay, just give it some time. PLC inputs are all digital diodes, but most sensors give an analog output. Won't that create a problem? How do we deal with analog sensors? So most sensors don't give analog output. Okay, that's not true. I would say most sensors give digital output. When you talk about analog inputs and outputs, you have something called, in this PLC there is no inbuilt analog, right? There is no inbuilt analog. As you can see, there is only inputs and there are only outputs, right? So when we need analog, we can actually go and extend it using an analog card. So you can see this is my extended analog card. It is a DVP06XA, which basically is going to allow me to have some analog inputs, right? So I actually have some potentiometers here. If you can see, there are some potentiometers here, right? And these potentiometers are actually connected to my analog input here, right? So this is when you require analog inputs, you will, in the case of this particular PLC, you will have to use an extended module, right? In other higher end PLCs, it might be inbuilt, right? So you do have analog inputs and outputs on PLCs as well, right? So I've not yet come to that yet, right? Okay. Is NPN faster than PNP? No, there is no such thing. Okay, there is no such thing as NPN faster than PNP. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through what NPN PNP is, because I know a lot of people get confused with this, right? So let me just quickly go through it again, guys. Okay, and in just 5 minutes, we will start with the programming part. Okay, we have a lot to cover in programming, right? So let's try to finish this ASAP, right? So just to recap, your PLC is basically, there are two types of sensors generally which you will find. You have PNP type sensors and NPN type sensors, right? Your PNP type sensor, also called as a syncing type, okay, syncing type, is going to have your normal 24 volts and 0 volts connected to it to power it on, but it is going to output a plus 24 volt DC signal. Okay, a plus 24 volt DC signal is going to be outputted by this sensor. That is why it's called as PNP, right? In an NPN sensor, you're again going to have your normal 024 powering the sensor, but instead of that 24 volt, you're going to have a 0 volt being outputted by the PLC, by the sensor, sorry, right? This is also called as sourcing, right? Now, why is this called syncing sourcing? It's basically because here it is sourcing 24 volts from the PLC common, right? Right, and here it is basically syncing that 24 volts from externally and then using a 0 volt common, right? That is where that syncing sourcing word comes, right? So don't get confused. Syncing is PNPs, sourcing is NPN. There is no such thing as which is faster or anything, right? It's both the same. Both these are transistor type inputs, so they are both very fast, right? Okay. Great. I'll just look at any other questions. Okay. I guess we can start with the programming part. Before I do that, I think we need to like just take a short mental break, right? So let's take or maybe a 5 minutes break, right? And I please everyone, please don't disconnect. Stay connected. Within a few minutes, we'll be starting with the programming part. And in the programming part, I'm going to be introducing you to how you actually can program this PLC. So I have a live kit in front of me, right? And I'm going to be programming this kit, right? So stay tuned for that. Just if there are any questions, I'm still here. I'll be happy to answer them. Yes, are there softwares which we need to download? Absolutely, there are softwares, right? So I guess we can also show that. Uh, so in order to actually go to the softwares, you'll need to go to deltaww.com, okay, deltaworldwide.com, right? And I'm just going to it so you can see where you can download these softwares from, right? And once we go here, you go to service support, right? Service support, and you go to the download center, right? So this is the Delta website, right? If you go to products, right, and you go to industrial automation, you will see that all the different types of devices, you can actually see the specifications. So they have things like drive power quality, AC drives, motion control. In control, you will have PLC, HMI, things like that. Field devices like your temperature controller, sensors, different things, robots, and many other such things, right? So if you want the softwares, right? So you go to the download center, right? It will open up this download center, and there are basically four main softwares which I'm going to be showing you guys, right? For today, two softwares are important, right? Now, this is not going to be an interactive session where I'm telling you and you are going to be programming, which is why I've not given you all the links yet, right? But you all can go ahead and download this and practice on your own. In order to get the softwares, now the two softwares are called as Com Manager, which is your communication manager, and ISP Soft. Okay, these are the two softwares, and the other softwares I will be sharing tomorrow. Right, those are for HMI. So how do you actually get this? You have to select industrial automation here, and you select the product range. I want for PLCs, right? PLC, you can see it here, and you can click on submit, and you will see that. You can select software as well, right? Because we only want software. Otherwise, it will also give you manuals, right? And you can see that the latest versions of the software are given here. So the ones which we have to download is ISP Soft. Okay, so please make sure that you are downloading the English version. This is the English version, right? So ISP Soft version 3.13 is the latest, right? And you can go down and you can also download the communication manager, which is the latest is 1.13, right? So you can download this as well. So these two softwares have to be downloaded if you all want to use you all want to program PLCs, right? And it can also be programmed in simulation mode, right? So I will also probably maybe give a small guide on the group as well. Yeah, Ninad is saying, why can't, you said we can't use PNP, NPN sensors in the same circuit, but can we just use an inverter before the inputs if required, or that is not advised? Ninad, what happens is that you generally, your response time is very important for sensors, right? So if you're going to use an inverter, generally it is not an inverter, it will probably be something like an optocoupler or something. And, there is a chance that, first of all, you're increasing your cost needlessly, right? And the second thing is that you'll probably lose a little bit of time generally, right? So response time of sensors is very important, right? So if I have a sensor which is going to give me a 10 milliseconds response time, and then you put it through something which is going to invert that and make it NPN or something, there's a chance that you're actually increasing that response time, right, to maybe 20 seconds or 20 milliseconds or something, right? So yeah, so this is the basic explanation of that. Okay, so guys, we'll take a short break. Like I said, just another two minutes of break, right? And we'll be back in 2 minutes, and we will start with the programming part. Okay, so see everyone then. Okay. Okay, so welcome back everyone. Yeah, Priyanka is asking, can you share the recorded video? Yes, it will be uploaded to YouTube. Okay. I will be uploading this private video to YouTube so that all those in the lecture can access it, right? So, right. So let's continue, guys. The next thing which we generally want to learn about in PLCs is basically selection, right? Now, I can actually take a whole 1 or 2 hours lecture on selection, but I'm not going to do that because it's going to be something on a very, use case kind of point of view, right? What I'm going to show you is just the very rough overview of the different types of PLCs which Delta Electronics has, right? We have your DBP series, basically. You have your DBP series Slim CPU series, right? And as most of you can see is that this is the exact same PLC which I have here, right? So this DBP 12 SE, you can see it over here. So this is your Slim CPU types, right? So there are maybe 4 or 5 models in this. You have your SA2, SE, you have SSV, okay? So depending on your requirement, you will have different models over here, right? So this is suitable for your basic level applications, and you can control up to 4 servos using this. You can have up to 512 IO points, right? Now, when you also have a series DVP series which is run on 240 volts AC, right? So you also have a series for that as well. So that is a separate series. You have PLCs like your EH3 and ES and things like that, right? So these take an input of 240 volts, but at the end of the day, your inputs outputs are going to be 24 volt DC only, right? So there's going to be an internal SMPS which will produce that 24 volts, right? And then when it comes to motion, right? When it comes to motion, we have a series called as DVP motion CPU series, right? So here we have 50 MC and 15 MC. There are 2 controllers here. Now, whenever you have an application where you require motion control, right? So what exactly is motion control? Now, I'm going a little deep into automation concepts, guys. So just bear with me. By maybe the third lecture, you will probably understand exactly what I'm talking about, right? But when it comes to DVP motion series CPU, we have things like ECAM function, we have things like gearing, we have things like interpolation, right? So in that is not to say that your DVP series does not have interpolation, right? It does have interpolation, but very basic linear interpolation and circular interpolation in increments of 90 degrees, okay? So there are a few PLC models that support linear interpolation here, up to 2 axis or something. Now, when you have higher end motion applications where you require maybe something like a robot or a high speed machine or something like that, right? In that case, you will go for this motion CPU. So this 50 MC and 15 MC actually work on the EtherCAT and CANopen respectively, right? So in your DVP series, you will have pulse output, which is basically if you'll have run steppers or what they call servos in Arduino, you will have run it through PWM, pulse width modulation, right? Now we don't use PWM or pulse width modulation. We actually use something called as PTO, which is pulse train output. But it is basically pulsing your output at a very high frequency to make that servo rotate as to how much you want, right? That we will be seeing again in the third lecture, right? But when we actually have servos on a network, right, a motion bus, right, then we go for this DVP series motion CPU, right, maybe 50 MC or 15 MC. So you can have many servos, right? I am not, I believe it is around 64 axis, which means 64 servos, right? So if you have something like a robotic application or something, you will definitely need to use this, right? Then you have your AS series, right? So your AS series is a high-end series, compact modular PLC, which has an amazing processor, right? And it has various modules. So you have your AS200 and AS300, right? So you will have various modules which you can expand Your IOs also can expand to be beyond 512. So this is for higher end applications, right? When you require to program a big machine or something like that, right? Again, over here, the motion is a bit limited. So if your goal is to run servo drive servo motors, the motion is a bit limited here, right? And finally, we have the AH series, right? So the AH series is the high-end series where you have, redundancy, right? So you have redundant CPU, redundant IOs, right? Now, what is redundancy? That is a whole other topic. Okay, we'll not get into that. But in layman's terms, it is basically as a if one CPU goes down or is in fault, it will switch over to the other CPU, and the same for IOs, right? So this is your AH series PLC. So this is roughly the different types of PLC range which you have in Delta. Okay. So if y'all are selecting PLCs, y'all are free to reach out to me, and I will be very happy to show you how to select, right? Okay. So let's move on. I don't see any other questions. Again, I invite you, if you have questions, please do release it. Tell me in the chat. Okay. Yeah. So let's move on. I'm going to go into the programming section, guys. Okay. So the first thing which we need to do is to actually, connect our PLC, right? So let me just turn off my video for a second. And I'm actually going to show you how I'm going to connect the PLC, right? So I'm going to connect an Ethernet cable to my PLC right now, right? So I'm connecting one end of the Ethernet cable to my PLC and the other end to my PC, right? So I'm going to do that right now. Okay. So you all can see that I have now connected an Ethernet cable right here, right? So I'm going to be programming using this Ethernet cable, right? And I'm going to plug the other end of this cable to my PC, right? So I'm going to plug the other end to my PC, right? So it has now been plugged in, right? Now, there are certain things which you will need to do before programming a PLC through Ethernet, and I'm not going to go deep into that, right? But you have to make sure that your computer is on the same IP, right? So I'm going to go to right-click on my network, options of network. I go to advanced network settings and I go to change adapter options, right? And I'm going to check this Ethernet, go to the properties. So click on properties and go to this TCP IP 4. And as you can see, I have put a fixed IP for my PC, right? So let me just turn on my video again, guys. Yeah. So I have put a fixed IP for my PC, right? So I have put a fixed IP is because my PLC also has a static IP, right? So my PLC IP by default of my DVP series is 192.168.1.5. Okay. I'm not going to go deep into why now I have put 1.100 and what are nodes and I'm connecting on the same node and all that. But just again in layman's terms, if I need to connect to a PLC on 1.5, I need to have 1 dot something assigned to my computer, right? So this one node has to can take up to 255 devices, right? So we can have up to 255 devices over here connected. So I have put a static IP of 1.100 and 255, 255, 255, 0, right? I'll be showing you guys also how to use a simulated PLC as well. Okay, so don't worry about that. Right now, I'm just showing you in a real PLC scenario, how do we connect, right? So once I've done with this, right, I will first open up my communication manager, right? So this communication manager will open up like this, right? And I will double click this, right? And if you notice, it has not opened up, okay? It has not opened up on my screen. What has actually happened is that it has gone to my system tray down here, right? Can you see it is in my system tray? So I can now double click it in my system tray, right? So let me just delete everything which is here. Okay, I don't want to confuse people. So I'm just going to delete whatever was there. And this is what you guys will have by default, right? You will have a communication manager, completely blank slate, right? And we can actually go ahead and add a device from here on the right side. Now, depending on the device you have, you will have to add it from here. So I'm first going to add, and in the driver name, I'm going to write DVP12SE, which is the name of my PLC. And in the connection type, as you guys can see, I have connected through Ethernet, right? I have an Ethernet connected over here. So I am going to select Ethernet here, right? I'm going to select Ethernet, and it is going to ask you which Ethernet card you want to connect to, right? So generally, most laptops will have a wireless card and a Ethernet LAN card, right? So we want to connect on this LAN card, which is 192.168.1.100. And in the IP setting, I'm going to click on add, and you can see that my PLC has been added over here, right? So I told you that my IP address is 192.168.1.5. So I'm just going to change this to 5, right? So now my PLC communication settings has been done, right? So I can go ahead now and open up the software, right? So I'm going to open up the software ISPsoft, right? So this software is used for all PLCs, right? So this is one common software used for all PLCs. I'm going to open it up. It'll take a little bit time to open, guys. Just give me a few seconds, right? Yeah, it's just open. And by default, right? By default, you will have this completely blank gray screen pop up, right? So this is your default how it should open up, right? Now, once you have programmed something, some program, and you actually come back to the software, it will open up your last program, right? So that is how ISPsoft works, right? So first of all, let us first make sure that we are going to connect to our COM Manager PLC, right? So we go to Tools, Communication Settings, right? Communication Settings. Excuse me. Communication settings, and in the driver we are going to select DVP12SE, right? Make sure that you select this, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, driver DVP12SE, click on OK, and now you will see that below here it is written as offline DVP12SE Ethernet. Okay, that means I am now telling my ISPsoft software that listen, I have defined the PLC DVP12SE in my communication manager, and I want you to write to that PLC or read from that PLC, right? So now the first thing which we need to do is to actually create a project. Okay. Now, remember one thing is that creating a project and creating a program is two separate things. Okay. Uh, if I have to give you an example, I will say that supposing I have a Coca-Cola plant. Okay. And this Coca-Cola plant will first blow the bottles, then it will clean the bottles, then it will maybe fill the bottles, then it's going to cap the bottles, and then it's going to label the bottles. So it's a whole line, right? So if I'm you can think of the project as that whole line, right? That whole line is under one project, and then individual parts is going to be different programs which I'm writing. Okay, so you can have multiple programs in one project, right? So if I have to create a project, I can go on the top left here and I can click on this new icon, right? You can also press Control+N, right? Control+N, and it will create a new project, right? And you can name whatever you want, right? But make sure that your controller type matches the one which you have created here, right? Now, most of you will not have PLCs with you, right? So when you create a simulated PLC also, it will ask you which simulated PLC you want to create, right? And in that case, you have to make sure that you select the correct simulated PLC, right? So if you can see controller type, like I said, there are different types of PLCs, DVP, AH Motion, ES, different types, right? So we are going to select the DVP series, and in the DVP series, you will see that there are many types of different PLCs, right? You can see all the different types of PLCs. So I have an SE PLC, so I am going to select the SE, right? So let me just see where it is. SE, right? So this is my PLC here. So I'm going to select the SE. The drive path is where you're going to save your program. I'm going to click on OK. Right. So we have now created a project, right? We have created a project, but we have not created a program yet, right? We have not created a program. So what we are going to do is on the left side, we are going to right click on programs, right? And we are going to click on new, right? And once we click on new, we can see that a program, create program window has popped up, right? Now over here, you can actually select the language which you want to use, right? So remember I told you guys that Delta has some extra languages, right? So Delta also has CFC and C language extra, right? But if you notice, it is grayed out, right? So in this particular series of PLC, which is my DVP12SE, I only have 3 languages which I can use, right? If you have maybe an AS series or AH series or probably 15 MC, 50 MC, you will probably have all these languages accessible, right? But right now I'm going to select ladder diagram, right? So we'll start by learning ladder diagram. I'm going to click on OK. And we can see that a program window has opened up, right? So I'm going to expand using this button here. Okay, just expand it here. And I think I can close this on the right side here, this library, right? So I'm just going to close this. This library consists of all different functions. I'm going to close it for now, right? And I can also close this on top here, right? So I can click this and close, right? So this is your bare bones, I would say, project, right? Which we can actually see over here, right? Now, if we actually need to just test that our connection is working, right? I can actually go ahead and try to download this program to the PLC. Okay, I can download this program to the PLC, and you can do that by actually pressing this button over here, right? So you have something called as download to PLC. You can see this button here, right? Now there's also a button on the other side which is called upload from PLC. Now this is exactly opposite, which means that if you have a current project running on the PLC and you want to upload that logic from that PLC, you can click on the upload button, right? Right now, I want to download, which means that I have a completely blank program, which I want to download, right? So I can click on this download button, right? So what is this going to do is this actually going to download my program. You just need to keep pressing enter and it will download the program to you. Okay, so it's downloading currently to my PLC and I'm going to click on OK. And I'm going to close this, right? So now if I actually want to check whether I can access this PLC online, I can go into something called as online mode. Okay. So this online mode button is the yellow color button present over here, right? And as soon as I click this button, I am online live with the PLC now, right? Now, obviously there is no code to see, right? So definitely we can't see live what is going on. But we are live with the PLC. Now, how do we know we are live with the PLC, right? After downloading, right? So you will first see something as a scan time over here. You can see that this scan time is now visible, right? So since there is no program, we have the scan time of 0.2 milliseconds. We also see the number of steps over here. And we can see that the PLC is in something which we call as run mode, okay? So by default, your PLC will have two modes, which is run and stop, right? And if I click on this red button here, I can actually stop, go into the stop mode, okay? This will go into stop mode. Now, what is this run and stop? It's basically your logic is going to run or not run. Okay. So either your logic will run or it will not run, right? So now it is not going to run. If I click on green, then only your logic will work. Okay. So now it is going to go into run mode. Okay. So now that we got the basics out of the way, let us try to just, learn about the first basic elements, right, of PLC programming, right? So I'm just going to open up my PDF for that. Okay, so the first element in any ladder programming, right, is something which is called as a contact element, right? Now, remember that I had explained something about inputs and outputs and things like that, right? And let us first try to understand the structure of ladder programming, right? So ladder programming is a graphical language, right? Which means that you can actually visually see how the logic is going to flow, right? And we have things called as rungs in ladder, which is each line of programming is called as a rung, okay? And you can see that this network one is actually my first rung, right? Now, if I want to introduce another programming line, what I can do is I can click on this insert empty network, right? So now if I insert before or after, it is going to be the same thing, right? Because there is no logic currently, right? So I'm inserting an empty rung and now I have a second rung, okay? So this is, the language which we used in ladder programming, which is called as rungs, right? Now, in ladder programming, there's another concept called as rails, okay? So you have rails on your left side and your right side. And generally, some people like to think of it as your positive rail and negative rail, but there is no such thing, right? It is just a left rail and a right rail, right? And what is actually going to happen, very much like an electrical circuit, right? how an electric circuit generally you will say your electricity is going to flow from left to right. In ladder programming, your logic is going to flow from left to right. Okay. So the reason why ladder programming is used so extensively and widely is because it is very similar to electrical diagrams, right? That is why it is used, right? So your logic flow is going to move from your left to right, right? So let us do a very simple example now, right? So we have talked already about inputs and outputs, right? So remember I told you that inputs are symbolized by the symbol X, outputs are symbolized by the symbol Y. And if I actually have to read these inputs, okay, I actually have to read these inputs. I will need to use an element called as a contact, right? So now I need to read the status of the input, right? So this input, remember, right? This input which is coming into my PLC here, that is going to come on using one of these switches or the sensor or button or anything, right? So now I have to tell the PLC that, listen, I want you to read the status of that particular input, whether it is on or off, right? So using contact element, I can do that, right? So your contact element looks something like this. Let us just directly go to the software and see how we can do it. So in the software now, when we want to introduce elements, we have this whole bar over here. Can you see this whole bar down here is for introducing elements, right? And by default, you will have your selection tool, right? Your selection tool will be by default here. Now, just like your CorelDRAW, Photoshop, Paint, by default, you will have to go back to your selection tool, right? So I am, and the command, the shortcut for that is pressing the escape button, right? So now I am currently on the selection tool. I can actually select different rungs. Can you see I am selecting different rungs using this selection tool? It is selected by giving me the indication of this red box, right? So this is what the selection tool can be used for, like clicking on elements, manipulating elements, things like that. Now I need to actually introduce a contact, right? So I'll go at the top here and I'm going to click on this contact here. I'm going to go down to this red box and I'm going to click here, right? And I'm going to increase the size, guys, so you all can see very properly. And you can see that a contact has been formed, right? Now this contact looks like a square, like a square box, but it's actually not a box. It is actually just selected using the selector tool. So I'm going to click on this selection tool or press escape, and I can click outside, and you will see that this is how a contact actually looks, right? So let's name this contact, right? So I'm going to name this contact. If you can see that my first input over here, I have named this first switch as X2, right? So I'm going to name this as X2 over here, right? I'm going to name this as X2. And this is simply how this logic is going to work, right? So your logic flow is going to come from this rail. It is going to stop at this contact, right? Let's call this as a switch, right? We can write a comment on top and call this as a switch. So once this switch turns on, okay, it is the PLC will allow the logic to go further, right? It will allow the logic to go further from here, right? So this is something like a condition, right? That if X2 is on, then go further in the logic, right? I hope everyone has understood this. Now, definitely by just turning on a switch, it is not a complete logic. We have to take some action. Can you see that this is empty over here? We have to take some action, right? Now, we have talked about inputs and outputs. So now let us turn on an output, right? So I am reading an input, right? I'm reading an input switch and I'm telling the switch that, listen, if this switch is on, then I need to turn on an output. And what I'm going to turn on is actually this LED at the top here, right? This LED at the top is my Y0 LED. Okay, it is my Y0 LED, right? So I'm going to turn on this LED. So how do I introduce a coil now, right? So I go on to the top, I click on the coil, I come back down here, click on the red box, press my escape button to go to my selection tool, right? And now I can name this coil as Y0, right? So let's just call this as lamp, right? We'll call this as lamp. And we have a switch and we have a lamp, right? So very, very simple logic, right? So now I have to actually download this to the PLC, right? So now instead of downloading, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just directly go into sync mode, right? I'm going to go into online mode. So what happens is when you actually try to go into online mode, it will first compile the program, then it will download the program. and then only will it allow you to go online. So it actually does all these functions, right? So I'm going to directly go into online mode. It is going to say it has not been compiled. You want to compile? I say okay. Then it's going to say program is not consistent, definitely, because we have changed it. PC to PLC download window, I'm going to say transfer, and it is going to transfer this, right? So what the PLC actually does is it goes out of run mode and then comes back into run mode, right? That's what actually happens. So now we are in online mode. Okay, you can see that we are in online mode. It's green here, and we can see that we are reading the status of this contact. You can see there's a faint green box around this input, and there's a faint green box around this output, right? So this actually means that we are reading live the status of these inputs and outputs, right? And we can actually go ahead and turn on this input, right? So I'm going to turn on this input over here. On the left side, we have this X2. I'm going to turn on this switch, and you can see that my output has turned on. And at the same time, in my software also, I'm getting an indication that this Y0 has turned on, right? So I can turn off my switch. Now, if my switch turns off, this logic flow from here will stop, and it will stop turning on this coil Y0, right? So I am going to turn it off, and you can see that it has turned off, right? So if you guys have learned C programming, right, which is your simple if, else, and if kind of things, you all will know that if I have to write this logic in very simple words, what I will say, if x2 is equal to on, then y0 is equal to on, else y0 is equal to off. Very simple, right? So this is your simple statement which has been written in ladder logic. And as you can see, ladder is very easy to understand, right? We can actually look at it graphically and see, right? So I hope everyone has understood this part. Now it comes to writing logic, right? So when we actually have to write some logic, then how do we write it, right? So let's talk about series and parallel logic, right? So now supposing I have two switches, right? I have two switches. And as you can see in my kit right now, I have two switches. Maybe I have X2 and we have X3, right? And I want to actually, say right now it is if X2 is on, then Y0 turns on, right? But I want to say if X2 and X3 is on, then only turn on Y0, right? I want to have an AND condition. So to have an AND condition, okay, I can actually go into an online edit mode, right? So I'm going into online edit mode, and I'm going to add a contact in series over here, right? And I'm going to name it as X3, right? And I'm going to call this as switch 2, right? Now what has happened is that using a series contact, I am effectively creating an AND logic, right? So this is going to be X2 and X3, and then the resultant of that will give you the Y0, right? So if you want to just trace the logic, it is so easy, right? I'll just update this logic, right? I'm updating the logic from the top, and it has updated this logic. So from this X2, right? From this X2, if I actually run this logic from left to right, I will say if X2 is on, right? If X2 is on and X3 is on, then Y0 will turn on. Okay. If X2 is on and X3 is on, then Y0 will turn on. So this is very easy by looking at the kit. So I have this kit here. Now, if I turn on X2, let's see what happens. We see that nothing happens, right? Because only this X2 has turned on, but you can see that the logic flow has stopped at X3, right? Again, now I'll turn off X2, right? And I will try to turn on X3, right? So I've turned on X3 now, and you can see again nothing has happened. What will the only time when Y0 will turn on is when both the inputs are on, which is your basically your AND truth table, right? And truth table is 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 1 is only 1, right? So that is your AND truth table, right? So now you can see that my output has turned on, right? Let's turn this off. Okay, so now if we have learned about series logic, right? Definitely we need to learn about parallel logic as well, right? So if we have parallel logic, I am sure you must have guessed it by now, is that it is going to be an OR logic. It's going to be an OR type, right? So now if I want to introduce an element in parallel to this contact, right? Just very carefully look how am I going to do it, right? I'm going to go to this element here, and I am going to go over this element, and you can see that a parallel icon has now come here, right? This parallel icon, I can actually click this, and I have created a parallel network here, right? And I'll go back to my selection tool. I'm going to name this as X3, And now I can see that a parallel network has been created, right? Now, if you notice, this parallel network is actually connected to my left rail. Okay, so both the contacts are connected to my left rail. So now actually what is going to happen is that I have two pathways now. I can either come from X3 and turn on Y0 or come from X2 and turn on Y0. So this becomes your OR truth table, right? So if you want to write an OR, you can write it like this, right? So you can either turn on X3 or you can turn on X2, right? One of the two, right? Now, you can also turn on multiple outputs, right? So if I want to turn on multiple outputs, I can actually put outputs in series over here, right? So let's try putting on all these outputs. So I have 4 outputs over here. Let's try putting on all these outputs. I'll put Y1, Y2, and Y3, right? And I'm going to update this program and let us try running all these outputs now, right? So this should turn on all the outputs at once using either one of these switches, right? So let's turn on X2. All the LEDs come on now, right? So we can see now that we are able to fire all the outputs, right? So I hope everyone has understood what is series, what is parallel, and all these sort of things, right? And I'm going to continue with uh, with a concept, right? With a concept which is called as latching. Okay, now this concept is something which is very, very important, right? Very, very important. And we are going to learn about latching using an example. Okay, so let's just minimize this. I'm going to delete this, right? I'm going to delete these comments as well, right? And delete this, right? So, latching is a concept, okay? Latching is a concept which is used very extensively in PLC programming. And it's something which every programmer needs to know, right? How to latch an output, right? So let's take a very simple example, okay? A very simple example of there's a guy called, let's say, Ram, okay? Now, Ram is a budding PLC programmer, right? And he's very excited. He's learning Delta Electronics PLCs for the first time. He's very excited about learning how to control PLCs and writing ladder logic. And Ram decides basically that he wants to automate the his pumping system at home, right? So Ram actually has a borewell in his house, right? So I hope that most of you know what a borewell is, right? So a borewell is basically going to be a submersible pump, which is going to be pumping water from your groundwater to your top tank, right? That is what a borewell is, right? And I'm sure most of you have borewells in your village, or some of you might even be lucky enough to have it in Mumbai, right? But this is what a borewell is, right? So now a borewell consists of a very simple circuit, right? So a borewell is going to have generally a start button, right? And sometimes there's a stop button, and sometimes there is a sensor to check the water level, right? And how a borewell should work is that when you press the start button, right, the motor should turn on, right? The motor should turn on, right? So Ram, this guy is very excited, right? So he's saying, I will automate my borewell in my house, right? So he's very excited, and he goes to write the program, right? So he gets like a DVP PLC, small PLC. He gets some start button, stop button, SMPS, and he attaches everything. And he gets maybe a contactor to run his motor, and he writes the program. Right now, unfortunately, Ram has not gone through this course which you're doing today, so he doesn't know PLC programming, right? So Ram has to now figure out how to write this on his own, right? So first, he'll have something which is like a start button. Can you see there is a start button here, right? So like I said, this start button is a push button, right? Which basically means that it can be turned on, and then when you release it, it will go off, right? So let's see how Ram is going to do this, right? So he is going to first write, put a contact here. So he'll write a contact here. And as you can see in the kit, we have this as X6. So this is connected to my X6 input, and it is my start button, right? So Ram does this, and he's very, he's writing his program, and he connects his motor to his Y0, right? So over here, he has connected a contactor, which is going to run this borewell motor, right? So let's just write this, this bore well, and we are going to write this as bore well motor, right? So this is my bore well motor, and Ram is very proud of himself. He's like, yes, I've written this PLC program. Now my machine is going to work, right? And let's go into online mode and download this program and see how it is going to work, right? So just let's download this. So downloading this over here, just give it a few seconds and it's downloaded, right? So now Ram decides, okay, I want to, I want to actually run this motor. Okay. So he goes very proudly to his control panel and he says, I'm going to run this bore well motor, and he goes and he presses this green button here, right? So when he presses this green button, right, you'll see that the motor is turned on. And then Ram is very happy, and then he removes his finger and he goes to watch TV or something, right? And when he comes back, he realizes that the tank is not filled, right? Because what has happened, he has pressed the button, the LED has come on, but he has released the button and the motor has gone off, right? The motor has gone off, right? So that motor has not stayed on, right? So Ram comes after watching his Netflix for 30 minutes and he comes back expecting the tank to be full, and he realizes it is not full, right? So now Ram is thinking, he's thinking, I have done some problem, some logical issue is here somewhere, right? So then Ram decides that, maybe I need to introduce a latching concept to this circuit, right? Now, what is the goal of this whole circuit, right? The goal is that I press the start button once and it will turn on that bore well motor, right? That is what my goal is, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a concept called as latching, right? And I'm going to show you how to do that, right? So I'm going to click on the contact here. And in this contact, I'm going to create a parallel contact below this X6, right? I'm going to create a parallel contact below this X6. And this contact I'm going to name as Y0. Okay, I'm going to name this contact as Y0. Now, a lot of people might be thinking this doesn't make sense, right? Didn't you say that contacts are for inputs? No, I didn't say that, right? I said that contact is going to read the status of your input, right? At the same time, it can also read the status of your output, right? So what is happening here, this contact is reading the status of Y0. So that is okay, right? I'm reading just the status. So this is either going to be on or off depending on whether the actual output is on or off, right? So now let's update this logic, right? Let's update this logic and see now whether, Ram is going to be successful or not, right? So again, Ram goes to his control panel and he's like, okay, now it will definitely work. By the way, Ram is a horrible co-programmer, okay? You guys don't be like Ram, right? So you should write your logic, think about your logic, and then only implement it, not do it by step like this, right? But anyway, so Ram updates this logic. He goes to his PLC and he goes to his control panel and he says, okay, I'm going to turn on this button. He presses it once. And as you can see, the motor has turned on, and he releases the button and he's very happy. Now the motor has stayed on. Okay. So Ram is like, okay, amazing and all that. And again, now Ram, since it takes 10 minutes to fill the tank, Ram says, he gets distracted and he goes to watch the second episode of Netflix, right? So after 10 minutes, suddenly his mom starts shouting that the water is overflowing, right? So generally, just for your reference, in a borewell type application, when you're pumping water to the tank, generally the best way to turn off the motor would be to have a sensor that senses the top level of the water, right? But that doesn't happen in India. In India, what happens? We do jugad, right? We take one pipe, we cut it, we put it at the top of the tank, and then when the tank overflows, it will overflow from that pipe, and then someone in the house will scream that it is overflowing, right? That is what we do in India, right? So this is what has happened. And then Ram comes to he says, okay, mummy, I'll turn off the motor. He goes to his circuit and he realizes, I have not put a stop button. I don't know how to stop this logic, right? So again, I'm saying horrible programmer, right? Don't be like Ram, right? So now Ram has to now implement a stop button, right? So this, first of all, we have learned one concept called as latching, right? This is the first important concept which we learned from Ram today, which is called as latching, where we have latched this output by keeping it in series, keeping it in parallel with my input, right? This is called as latching. Now we have to introduce a stop button, right? Now, I am also going to talk about a concept called as NO and NC now, right? NO and NC, right? Now, what is this NO and NC, right? So, NO stands for normally open, okay? It stands for normally open, right? And NC stands for normally closed, okay? So, let us actually see what this means, right? So, if you notice, let's look at the PLC now, right? So I have an X6 over here. Now remember that the green button is X6 and this button over here, which is my emergency button, right? Emergency button works like this, that when I press it, it will go inside. And then when I want to release it, I have to rotate this button, right? So I'm rotating the button here. Now it is released. That means this button is not pressed now, right? This emergency button is currently not pressed, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to just zoom you in, and if you can see, there are some certain indicators on my PLC. Can you see there are some indicators? Wait, it's coming a little blurred, guys. Yeah. So we see little indicators. We can see that the X4, right? We can see that the X4, sorry, the X5, right? The X5 LED is on, right? So when we actually go back, right, and we see what is X5, we notice that that is the emergency, right, which is not pressed currently, right? So just to give you an example, I'm going to press this X6 while I'm zoomed in, right? So I have this zoomed in over here. Let me press this X6 button and you will see that let me just try to focus it, guys. Yeah. So when I press this X6, you will see that the LED turns on. Can you see the LED turning on, right? Right. So the X6 LED is turning on. Okay. Don't get confused. The thing below is what the notation is. Can you see it's written X7 for the last one, X6 for the last one, right? So the X6 is turning on. But if you notice, this X5 is on continuously, right? And when I actually press the emergency, and I'm going to press the emergency button, now it goes off. Can you see the X5 has gone off, right? So this is actually what is your NO and NC, okay? A normally open input is an input is which is by default the circuit will be open, and when you press that input it will close the circuit, right? That is what we normally expect, that when it is not pressed it will not give us a signal, when it is pressed it will give us a signal. That is a normal NO, normally open input, right? And NC, okay, normally closed button works exactly opposite, okay? What the NC button is going to do is that by default, electrically, it is going to give you a on signal, right? It is going to give you an on signal. And when you press that button, it is going to cut off that signal, okay? So, this is going to lead to a follow-up question, right? Okay. And I'm going to ask that question for the chat, okay? And the question is basically, is that why is the stop buttons, emergency buttons, and generally limit sensors in PLCs, why normally are these kept as normally closed, right? They are normally kept as normally closed, right? And things like start button and all are usually kept as NO, which is normally open, right? So why are emergency buttons and stop buttons and critical buttons like critical sensors like your limit sensors, why are they electrically wired to be normally closed? Okay, so you can answer that in the chat. Okay, I'll give everyone a minute or two to answer that, right? So let's continue with our example, right? I want an answer to that question, right? So I'm giving everyone 2 minutes. So now if I want to just introduce this X5, right, I will just create a contact in between. So you can see that I want to break this logic here coming from Y0 to this Y0, right? So I will create a contact here. I will call it as X5. Okay, and you can see immediately that we have a signal in X5, right? And I will call this as my stop button, right? And I'm going to download this. Okay, downloading this, update completed. Now, if I press this X5 button, okay, if I press this X5 button, it will cut the circuit, right? It is cutting the logic flow and my Borewell motor has turned off, okay? Right? So this is by default your condition where your Borewell is not on. I can actually turn on the Borewell using this X6 start button. It will turn on the Borewell. Can you see the Borewell is on? And now if I have to turn off this Borewell, I can press this stop button, right? So now finally Ram has completed his logic, right? So this is a very simple way of programming a Borewell motor, right? A Borewell kind of circuit, right? So now the question is again, I'm asking why is this stop button and generally other stop buttons, emergency buttons, limit sensors, why are they kept as electrically NC? Okay, so I'll look in the chat now, guys. I hope I get some good answers. To avoid condition of floating voltages, no. So that the circuit can be opened or stopped in case of emergency, close but not. To determine whether the switch is working. Tejas, you're right, but I want a little bit more, I want to understand a little bit more, right? There is this one word which I'm looking for, okay? Just one word is the answer, okay? And this word is something which we don't care much about in India, okay? So what is that one word? Can anyone tell me that one word which is the answer to this question? Okay, Nihil has answered this correctly, right? Very good. The word is safety, right? This is done for safety. Okay, it is done for safety. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So why safety? I'm sorry. Why safety? Right? Why safety? Let us assume, right? Let us assume that this is a circuit, right? So again, let's talk about Ram. Okay, this is Ram guy is getting targeted today, right? So Ram is very happy with his circuit, right? As you can see, his circuit is working perfectly, right? His circuit is working perfectly. His motor is turning on, and he can turn off his borewell, and he's very happy, right? Now assume what happens one day. Supposing Ram did not use NC for this stop button. Okay. Now don't think of it logically that if this is not NC, then this would never turn on the borewell. Don't think of it that way. There are ways to turn on the borewell even if this is not NC, right? There is something called as an inverted contact, which I can make an NO into NC and an NC into NO, right? So I have that functionality with me, right? So it is not about not about that, right? About logical. It is not about anything logical. When we talk about safety, okay, imagine now Ram basically in his particular house, he has a rat somewhere running around, okay, and this rat has been observing Ram, creating this whole borewell project, and this rat now says, I am going to chew that wire in the night for sure. Okay, it looks so tasty, right? So what happens is that Ram's borewell is working fine during the day. In the night, what happens? This rat comes and he chews the signal wire between the start button and the PLC. Okay, so the signal wire which is coming when the start button is pressed and which then comes to the input of the PLC, that is what the rat has chewed. Okay, so now what happens? Ram comes next day and he says, "Chal, I will, I will start the borewell again." And he goes to press his start button, and he realizes that that input is not going to the PLC, right? So any accident has happened? No, right? No accident has happened. Everything is fine till now. No issues at all. Except that probably that the machine is not starting, right? And this is not only for the borewell, right? This is for all machines, right? So no accident has happened, no problems, like nothing. So what Ram will do, he will check the circuit, he will check why that, continuity, he'll check the continuity, he'll realize that the input is not coming to the PLC, and he'll probably fix that connection, right? Now the next day, right? The next day, the rat decides that, instead of the start wire, I will now chew the stop wire. Okay. Now, if the stop wire is chewed and it is an NO button, right? If it is an NO button, what is going to happen is that when Ram starts the borewell, okay, it will start. There will be no problem, right? But when he goes to stop the borewell, he will realize then that because it was an NO button, he doesn't know that that stop button was chewed and that it was not working, right? So he realizes, oh, now I can't stop the machine. So is this going to, could this cause an accident? Absolutely. In the real industry, can this cause an accident? Definitely, right? Same goes for things like limit sensors. Supposing you have a big machine which is moving on a rail or a crane or something, right? A crane is moving on a rail and that limit sensor is NO and it fails. How does the machine know that that sensor has failed, right? So for that, we use NC sensors, right? So remember one thing, that NC is electrically wired to be NC, right? It is different from inverting a contact, right? Electrically wired to be NC. So now what will happen is that, supposing this is an NC sensor, which we already have here. If the rat choose the wire, right? If it choose the wire between stop and the PLC, what will happen? This signal which we are getting in the PLC, this will go. Can you see that this signal is gone now, right? Because the rat has chewed the wire. Now what will happen if I try to start? Nothing will happen, right? Because the PLC is thinking that I am in stop mode, correct? So I hope that you all understand the importance of NO and NC. Okay. Right. Guys, I am going to take one very other small topic and then we'll stop for the day. Okay. Because I want to finish before 12. Okay. So I'll just finish the last two commands, which I feel are very important. Right. And the last two commands are something which we call as set and reset. Okay. Now, set and reset are commands which are used extensively in your programs. Okay. And basically what set and reset does, it is for outputs. Okay. So supposing you have a coil here, right? And by default, we were actually turning on this Borewell motor, right? Using the start button. Supposing I have an NO start button and an NO stop button. Okay. Can I turn on and off the Borewell motor using set reset? Yes. Okay. But let's see how set and reset works first, right? So what happens is that generally when you latch an output, what happens is that you have to have your start and stop in the very same circuit, right? In the same rung, you need to have your start and stop. A better way, or another way I would say, would be to use a set command. Okay. So what a set command actually does is, now if you can see, I have introduced a coil here. I can double click this and I can see that there are three options. One is a normal coil, one is a set coil, and one is a reset coil. So I'm going to click on the set, right? And I'm going to create another network now, and I'm going to create a stop button. Let's say that I think it is my stop button is X7, right? So I'll create an X7, which is my stop button, right? And this is not the emergency button. This is the red color stop button here, right? This is this button, right? So now what I will do is I will say introduce a coil here, right? And I will double click this and say reset Y0. Okay. So what does this actually do? Okay, what this actually does is it sets the coil to be on continuously, and it will only reset the coil when this stop button gets pressed. Okay, so you could say it is kind of like another way of latching. Okay, so when I press this X6, this Y0 is going to stay on. Okay, so let's see that. I'm going to turn this on. As you can see, it has stayed on, right? This Borewell has stayed on. And now when I reset this Y0, will it go off? Okay. Only when I reset this Y0 will this coil actually turn off, right? So let's try that. I'm going to click on this, press this X7 here, and it will reset. Okay. So now one more thing I want to note to everyone, do not get confused that this coil down here is also on when I'm setting it. This is an indicator for Y0, not for your set reset. Okay. So this green means that your Y0 is on, right? And only when your X7 turns on will it go ahead and reset this coil. Okay. So what is the advantage? First of all, is that you have full control of when you want to turn on your outputs, when you want to turn them off. You can turn on your first output on line 1 and turn it off on line 100. Doesn't have to be in the same circuit. Okay. So great. I think we can stop here for today. I'm going to take a 5 to 10 minutes Q&A session, right? And I'm also going to show you guys a small example. Now, the problem is that generally when we generally teach using 3D simulations, right? And unfortunately, I cannot show you 3D simulations on Teams or Zoom. Okay, it doesn't work. It's very laggy. So I am going to be hosting these videos on YouTube, and I would like for everyone to go and watch these videos so that you'll have an understanding of how to program things, right? So just to give you an example, I'm opening up the first video, which is going to be linked on YouTube. And we are going to be programming a 3D machine, right? So this is a software, a special software where you can actually walk around and actually program a 3D machine. And I'm programming it using the Delta PLC, right? So on the right side, you can see my Delta software running on the right? And on the left, you can see I'm walking around in this 3D environment, right? So this environment has real machines like, conveyors and sensors and start buttons and all different things, right? So if you are interested in seeing how like a real kind of programming can be done and visually see it in 3D, you can go ahead and see that, right? Now we haven't yet, finished timers, but I will also be sharing this timer video with you so you can understand. So remember, I told you guys that we have something called as a water tank example. I will be linking this as well. Okay. So this will make sense after tomorrow's lecture, after you all learn timers and counters, right? So I'll be taking just timers and counters tomorrow, right? So I'll be linking these examples in the WhatsApp group. Okay. So if you are interested to see how a live programming takes place and how logic development takes place, you can go ahead and do this, right? So yeah, if there's any questions, I will take them now. Okay. So any questions regarding today's lecture, anything you would like to ask, please let me know. Okay. I'll wait for a minute or two. Yeah, Nihil is saying similar to an SR flip-flop. Yes, absolutely. SR stands for set reset. you know. So generally when you have function blocks which say SR generally in some of these editors, they generally mean set reset, right? Okay. I don't see any questions. I'll still wait for a minute in case anyone needs to ask anything. Yeah, Ninad. So, Ninad, the problem is that this simulator software which I am using, the 3D simulation, it requires a real PLC, unfortunately, right? So, and it is also a paid software. So there is a free trial, but it is a paid software at the end of the day, right? So I will contact you separately regarding the software, but you do need a real PLC, unfortunately, right? What was the SS port? The SS port was basically a selection where you could either give it a 0 volts or a 24 volts, and that will then switch between NPN and PNP mode, right? So your SS port is basically that. Right. Okay. Uh, Another 30 seconds, guys, for questions, and then I will close this lecture. Okay. Yes. SS stands for sync and source. So if you remember I was talking about syncing and sourcing. NPN and PNP is also called as syncing and sourcing, right? So that SS stands for sync and source. Yes, Ninad, tomorrow I will be showing you guys how to run the PLC in simulation. So don't worry about that, right? Delta has a way of running your HMI and PLC in simulation mode. Okay. So don't worry about that. That will be covered tomorrow in tomorrow's lecture. You will definitely be able to simulate all your programs without using a real PLC. Don't worry about that. Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll close the lecture for today. Uh, is set reset using the latching process? No, set reset is a separate command. Okay, it is a separate command. It is nothing to do with latching. Latching is a concept, right? Latching is a concept, whereas set reset is a command, right? Okay, so I'll see everyone tomorrow. I hope everyone has understood. I try to make it as simple as possible. Tomorrow we'll be covering counters and timers, and we'll be covering HMI and SCADA. Okay, so I'm also going to show you guys how to use a simulated PLC with a simulated HMI and SCADA. Okay, so y'all will not require any hardware to simulate stuff, right? So if anyone has any doubts, I'm on the WhatsApp group. Don't feel shy, reach out to me. Okay. Any problem in installing software, any doubts, questions, please reach out. I'll be very happy to answer, right? Tomorrow's lecture, again, I'm reminding everyone, it will be from 11:30 onwards, right? It is not from 10, it is from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Okay. So please note that timing, right? Thanks everyone for attending in very large numbers. Okay, I hope to see these numbers consistent for the 3 days, and I'm sure they will be because I've always had amazing time working with VJTI students. So thanks everyone. Thank you Delta Electronics for organizing this again. Thank you to VJTI again for organizing. I'll see everyone tomorrow. Guys, keep your eyes on the group. I'm going to be posting those videos and today's recording. Okay, today's recording will be posted on YouTube. Plus, I'm going to show you the 3D simulation videos as well. Okay, so great. See you all tomorrow. Okay, and take care.